Hello, well, I'm going to be developing some film today, and I thought, why not film part of it? I've been developing my own film for over 40 years, and I like to use the old school stainless steel tanks. So I know these aren't as commonly used nowadays, and I thought, why not share my techniques for loading film onto stainless steel reels and then into the stainless tank. Now, you can see I'm filming here in my bathroom. It's not the greatest place to film, so apologies for the audio quality. I'm sure it's pretty echoey in here, and obviously the lighting leaves something to be desired. But this is the area where I do load film, and so I thought I might as well shoot in the actual space that I use. So what are the keys to success in loading a film tank? Well, obviously you need to be in a room where you can make the room pitch black. And by that I mean absolutely dark, no light whatsoever. Film is very sensitive to light, obviously, and so even the tiniest amount of light can ruin the film once you've taken it out of the cartridge and are loading it into the reel. So I use this bathroom. This is one of the few rooms in the house where I can actually plug up all of the light gaps and make sure it's completely light tight. But even with that, there are some other things you need to think about as you're prepping your space to make sure it is completely light tight and will remain light tight throughout the duration of the process. So the first thing I do, I actually intentionally wear dark clothing just because if there is even the tiniest hint of light, the dark clothing will kind of tend to absorb it. That's probably a little bit of overkill because technically you shouldn't be having any light at all in the room. But just to be on the safe side, I wear dark clothing. Things you might not think about, your watch. If you have a watch that lights up in any way, like if you get a notification on your phone, you want to make sure and take that off. This watch does actually do that. So I take that off and I just put it in the drawer where it can't interfere. Other things that you might not think about, outlets. Some outlets have little lights on them. Plugs that go into the outlets, some of them have little lights on them. Things like if you like to listen to music, if you have a Bluetooth speaker, some Bluetooth speakers have lights on them. So make sure you look around and make sure you've gotten every little bit of light out of the room before you proceed. And in this bathroom, actually, one of my light switches is backlit with a very dim light so that you can find it in the dark. But that's something that is too much light for film, so I actually cover that light switch with black tape. So once you've made sure that all the lights are out in the area, the next thing to do is prep the space that you're going to work in. And so the first thing to do is make sure it's completely clean and completely dry, especially if you're working in a bathroom like I am, where there may be dust or water that's accumulated on the countertop. Make sure you've gotten rid of all that. The next thing to do is lay out all of your items in an arrangement that you can easily remember and find in complete darkness. So the tools that I use primarily consist of a standard bottle cap opener. This is what we're going to use to crack open the film cartridges, and just a small pair of scissors. This is what we're going to use to cut the film to make sure the ends are square so that they load into the reel properly. Now, obviously, I have the film cartridges that I'm going to be taking the film out of. Those are right here at my left hand. I have the two reels that the film's going to go in. The first one I have right in front of me, and then right behind that I have the tank and its lid and cap. I do keep the black tape nearby. I usually don't use that once I've started, but in case I do need it for whatever reason, it's right there. Now, when you're working with these stainless reels, the thing to remember is as you're looking at it from the top, if you're right-handed, which I am, you're going to be loading with your right hand and holding the reel with your left hand. If you're left-handed, it would be the inverse. But you can see the spiral of the reel. You want that to be turning so that the end of it is pointing to the right. That's important. You don't want it to go this way. You want it to go this way. That way, as you're loading the film into it right-handed, you're going to be turning it like this, and the film will naturally go into the spiral. If you have it turned the wrong way, it will not go in. Now the trick to these is there's usually a little spring tab that holds the film right here. And the way that I use these is I hold it with my left hand in a way that my thumb can reach that tab and push down like that. And then I'll be loading the film in with my right hand. But again, the key here is to make sure that you've set it up so that the end of the spiral is pointing to the right as you put it down, because once you've turned out the lights, it's going to be very difficult to confirm which orientation you have. I have the second spool up here, and that one also is pointing in the correct direction. That way everything is right where I need it to be. And as I'm working in the dark, completely blind, I know I can put my hand right here for scissors. I can put my hand right here for the bottle cap opener. I can put my hand right here for the reel, etc. Okay, with that, I will turn out the lights and load the film, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more. So the first thing to do while the lights are still on is to just get your area set up, go through a little mental checklist to make sure you're ready to go. The first thing I do is, first of all, make sure I'm wearing something dark, like I mentioned before. If your shirt has some kind of graphics on it, make sure they don't glow in the dark, because that can also affect the film. Normally, I would also take off my watch because it does have a message feature, and you'd be surprised how much light can come through even if it's covered up with your shirt. Normally, I would also take my phone out and put it outside the room as well. But since we're going to be working in the light here, I'm not going to worry about that today. Now, I prefer to work standing up. I just find that it's easier to move around and kind of orient myself in the dark. I can use the edge of the counter as a locator, so to speak. And then I just find it easier to maneuver things while I'm standing up. So I've got my desk set to standing height here. This mimics what I would normally be doing at the countertop in my bathroom. The next thing to do is to organize your work area so that you can find everything in the dark very easily. And you really only need a few simple tools, like I mentioned. I prefer to use small fabric type scissors, very sharp scissors, so that you get a nice clean cut of the film. I put those right where my right hand wants to fall. We're going to need some kind of means of opening the film canister. I use a standard bottle cap opener. Now we're also going to want to locate the developing tank. That one you want to kind of keep within reach, but outside of your working area so that it doesn't get in the way of what you're doing. So I put it just straight up at the top, kind of directly ahead of me, and then with its lid just off to the left. So it's out of my way, but I can easily find it in the dark. The film I'm going to keep to the left so that I can reach it with my left hand very easily. Now the two reels, this is going to be the important part. Again, make sure that you have the spiral going clockwise, I suppose, so that the end of the spiral is heading to the right at the top. And then that will automatically put the little clip in the right orientation. We're going to be feeding it this way. And it is a one-way spool, so you want to make sure you get that oriented correctly. The one I'm going to work on directly, I'm going to put right here in the middle. And then the second one, if I were to have two rolls of film, I would put that one right here. You just want to do it in a way that's replicable so that you know where everything is. You can kind of see it. It's all within a little bit of an arc of my natural range of motion, so I can easily put my hands on everything. Okay, now once you've got everything organized, the next thing you would normally do is turn out the lights and then figure out a way to reorient yourself exactly where you're standing. Since I can't film in the dark, I'm going to be doing this with the lights on, and I'm going to be using this old roll of film. Now don't worry, it's not usable film. This is some film from Kmart, probably from the 1990s. I got 2 rolls of this film. I tried to shoot one and I just wasn't successful. So I know this film is no good. So this is our sacrificial film for this demonstration. Okay, now since I can't turn the lights out, I'm going to replicate that by putting on a blindfold. I don't have a blindfold, so instead I'm going to use this handkerchief as my blindfold. So let me get set up, and then we will get started. Okay, now I can't see anything. You'll just have to trust me on that. So everything I'm doing from this point forward is exactly the way it would be if I were in the dark. So the first thing to do is to open up the film canister. So I'm going to find the film canister with my left hand, find the bottle cap opener with my right hand, make sure I've got the right end of the bottle cap opener. And the way that I do this is the lower end of the canister is the end I'm going to open. Just want to make sure I get this kind of gripping to where it's going to catch. And then you can see the end pops off fairly easily. Now keep in mind, if you do use a bottle cap opener, you are going to ruin the canister. So if you have hopes of reusing your canister, you'll have to figure out a different way to do this. Now I put the bottle cap opener right back more or less where it started, just so that if I need it again, I can find it. Okay, now that I've got the film canister open, the next thing to do is get the film out. So you normally just push this out, grab the end of it, and then the whole thing will, in theory, come right out. Now, the leader is going to be the first thing you encounter, and you can handle this. It's going to feel a little bit heretical. If you're used to only dealing with film by holding it by the edges, you can kind of be a little bit more clumsy with the end. So what I'm going to do is turn this so that the film is in my left hand, the leader is heading toward my right hand, like this, and I'm going to find the point where that leader cutout starts, and grip that more or less with my left hand. You can see I'm pinching it gently pinching it between my thumb and my forefinger, just enough to get a little bit of an arc on it. That kind of stabilizes the film. Then, again in the dark, I'm going to find my scissors. And the way I do this is I use my thumb and my forefinger as the guide for the scissors so that I don't cut myself. Open the scissors up, locate the bottom edge of the scissors with your thumb and forefinger, and just cut that nice and neat, and put the scissors back over here. We're going to need those, so I need to know where they are. The film leader, I will generally not worry about it, but if you can find it, just make sure you get it out of the way. Now, here's the trickiest part. Transfer the film over to your right hand. It's still on the spool. Maybe get a couple of inches out, and you can see how I'm pinching this between my forefinger and my thumb, which helps keep that film kind of straight and taut like that. Then I'm going to get the spool, and I'm going to feel the core of the spool with my finger until I find the little clamp. And the way that I do this is I put my thumb on the top side so that I can push down on that clamp with my fingers below the core. And then if I slip the film in here, I can gently guide the end of that film right onto that little clasp. And then with my thumb, I can push down on the clasp while I'm pulling the film in, and it will then be attached. Obviously, it's not incredibly strong, so I don't want to put a lot of tension on it, but that will show you that it's attached. Again, I'm pinching it with my thumb and my forefinger gently, just enough to get it inside the spool, or sorry, inside the reel. And then as I unwind the film off the spool, I'm winding it onto the reel with my left hand. And the act of pinching the film together will allow the film to pass into the reel, and then it will naturally spread out at the point where it meets the reel, and as it spreads out, it's going to go into the slots of the spiral, in theory. Now, if you've done this once or twice, you will develop a feel for if this is working or not. And you can see I'm kind of gently letting the film unwind itself on the spool in my right hand so that I'm not putting a tremendous amount of tension on it as I'm spooling it onto the reel in my left hand. And then in theory, as you go, you're basically just spooling that film onto the spiral of the reel. So you just keep going. You're going to be able to feel if something feels like it's binding or feels like it's not going on smoothly, then you just back it off of the reel and continue moving forward. And you should be able to feel if it's working properly or not. Now at this point, obviously, I'm only handling the film by its edges. This is the area of the film that would normally have the images on it. So you don't want to touch this part of the film. This does take a few minutes, so you just have to be patient and go slowly. Don't get in a rush. That's when things go haywire, and you'll have to start over. Okay, so once you reach the end, and you can feel the tape that's holding the film end to the core of the roll of film, then I'm going to do something very similar to what I did at the beginning. I'm going to pinch with my left hand and kind of hold that film in place, reach back over for the scissors, and then gently using my thumb and forefinger as my guide, I'm going to just quickly cut that off. Put the scissors back where they came from, move the core out of the way, and then again I can handle the very end of the film because there's likely no image there, and then just gently make sure that end drops into place. Okay, now the film is successfully spooled onto the reel. The next thing we need to do before we turn the lights on is get this into the tank, get the tank sealed up so that the film is not exposed to light when we turn the lights back on. So I'm going to reach up, find the tank, and then gently slide this reel into the tank. If you're just doing one roll of film, then I'll find the other reel, which is empty, and put that on top, just as a spacer more or less. And then the most important part before I turn the lights back on is to make sure the lid is on and sealed. And in this tank with the rubber top, it does take a little bit of effort. So, and that's it. Now the film has been successfully transferred to the reel. The reel has been successfully sealed into the tank. I can now turn the lights back on. And that's it. This tank is now ready to develop. Now, the procedure is pretty much the same for any other sizes of film. So I've got reels for 127 film, 120 film. I even have a reel for 122 film. This was very hard to find, but you can see the 122 reel is taller than the tank that accommodates two 35mm reels. So I do have another tank that's a little bit taller that this can fit into. But with a little practice, you should be able to do this very easily. It's not as hard as it looks. And once you've mastered the procedure, you can do it in just a matter of a couple minutes.